An Unexpected Future by A-Series on AO3. Episode 11, Chapter 11. Not the First One. By the time Sue was done fiddling with Five's cell phone, it was a lot easier for him to use. Not only was the default language switched to English, but she also installed a number of useful programs, such as Japanese to English dictionaries, a language learning app that would let him learn at his own pace, and a slightly finicky app where he could take a picture of Japanese writing and it would translate it on screen. Five loved the future. He didn't get a lot of time to experiment with said apps before they had to go back to the classroom, but Five was looking forward to testing them out properly. He was especially looking forward to increasing his Japanese literacy before any of the adults realized he was struggling on that front, which was why he was leaving his Japanese literature section for Nedzu's tests for the very end. He was a little surprised that the second half of the day passed as combat-free as the morning had, but at least it let him continue his work with minimal distractions while he kept an ear out on the lessons. But things couldn't remain quiet for long, it seemed, as the exit for the classroom was swarmed by even more students. What was with this school and crowding people? "They're scouting out the enemy, round face," Bakugo explained, calmly, as he made his way towards the door. "We're the ones who made it out of the villain's attack, so they probably want to check us out before the sports festival." A tall kid with purple hair made his way to the front of the pack, and trying to dress down the class, making his intent to transfer into the hero course clear, especially now that there was a spot open. It was interesting to see that the UA Sports Festival held greater weight than just a publicity event for some students, and how fierce the competition was. It seemed that not even UA was immune from pitting their students against each other, though Five idly wondered why the kid thought it was a good idea to be in the hero course if he failed the entrance exam. He didn't care enough to stick around or ask, especially as another loud student started yelling from out the hall. Five sighed and turned to Sue, who was hovering nearby, similarly watching the scene unfold, and said, "I don't have time for this. Want to skip the line?" "Ribbit?" Sue tilted her head as she looked at him. Begrudgingly, Five had to admit that he liked Sue. She didn't flinch standing up to either Five or Bakugo, a confidence born of assessment and moral standing rather than any form of arrogance or ignorance. She was easy to talk to, occupying a similar space of quiet and consideration as Ben and Vanya did back home. Not to mention the fact that she stood up for him when she didn't have to. It scared him a little. The more people he liked here, the harder it would be to go back home. And he will go home. He has to go home. Has to go back to his family. "Sure," Sue replied, offering her hand forward. Five stepped forward and took the crook of her elbow instead, jumping the pair of them several dozen feet down the hall, past where the crowd had gathered. Sue stumbled half a step, looking slightly greener than usual, before looking at the crowd they left behind them. That's pretty convenient." Five opened his mouth to agree, when a shout, unmistakably belonging to Bakugo, rang out over the crowd. "Get back here, you Back to the Future reject!" Five didn't even know what the fuck that meant, but he didn't feel like getting swept up in whatever this was. "Good luck," he said, briefly waving a hand at Sue before teleporting down the hall and away from the nonsense about to unfold. Yamada had warned Five that, as teachers, he and Aizawa would need to stay at school longer than the students were required to, so Five would need to stay longer as well, which was fine by Five. He was looking forward to finding out how useful the library was going to be to him, or at least start catching up on training he'd been slacking off on. But first, Five had finished all but the Japanese portion of Nedzu's test. It was broken up into sections that Five could turn into an appropriate teacher when he was finished, and he was thinking of turning in one or two of the sections he was more confident in. It was enough that they would know he was making progress, but not enough to think he might be holding back for some reason. He needs to play the smart if he wanted to come out the other side looking competent, pulling the science and math sections to the front, featuring questions with range so wide as to include name all the planets in our solar system and list at least 3 of the faulty of Cambroid nuclear reactors that caused the disaster and how you would combat them. On the same test, Five headed over to the teacher's office. The door was already open when Five reached it. Several desks pushed together in the center of the room to create small spaces for each teacher. Most of them seemed to still be out teaching, though, because the only person in the room was a gaunt man with a mane of blonde hair. Ah, hello. The teacher smiled at him, immediately noticing Five's arrival, and apparently his ethnicity. You're young Hargreeves, correct? That'll be me. Five confirmed. And you are... Ah, sorry about that. The teacher rubbed the back of his neck and gave Five a sheepish smile. You can call me Mr. Yan. I'm a newer teacher at UA, but I'm fluent in English. Let me know if there's anything I could do to help you out, okay? I know it could be overwhelming being in a foreign land all by yourself. Five carefully kept his expression the same, but he mentally perked at the opportunity he could see with this Yagi. He was fresh meat, still not sure of his position, and probably less trained in keeping information hidden. Five might be able to extract some more details about the time that he had missed from this man. Sounds like you're speaking from experience. Find yourself in a similar situation? Nothing quite as adventurous as your situation, I admit, Yamini said, waving it off. But I did spend quite some time in college studying abroad in the United States. Bingo. There's certainly a lot of differences between the two countries, Five said, putting on a smile and trying to match the man's amicability. I was surprised you're not supposed to use quirks here. It doesn't really seem fair to be told not to use a talent that you're born with. Some might think it's of a higher calling. Five wasn't sure what he was looking for. He just knew that any scrap of information he could get his hands on had the potential to be useful, and he wasn't about to waste an opportunity right in front of his nose. Yagi laughed lightly, seemingly unaware of Five's utter motives. That's a very American way of thinking about it. Quirks are in a pretty tricky spot, legally speaking, because they can do just about anything. It's hard to draw the line between what's acceptable public use and what isn't. In Japan, we solve the problem by banning the use of all quirks, unless they're licensed by heroes. In America, they're treated more like concealed weapons. You can get a permit to be able to use your quirk in certain situations, especially if you go into the field where your quirk can be beneficial. It's more of a nuisance system, but people are more likely to escalate a dangerous situation with their quirks rather than wait for the professionals. Interesting. That sounds like a thing Americans would do. Yeah. Five agreed, thinking of the few overzealous citizens from his missions. Back in my time, there were this cool superhero group called the Umbrella Academy. Have you heard of them? Yamada held his chin. It vaguely rings a bell, but I can't remember for what. If they were one of the earlier heroes, there's bound to be... My, what a fascinating discussion. Five startled, somehow completely missing the principal hovering right behind him. And judging by the coughing fit Yaki just fell into, he hadn't noticed Nedzu either. Though cross-culture exchange is essential for broadening horizons, I would advise you from providing any information regarding your own lifetime, Mr. Hargreaves. Some knowledge is best left unknown, yes? Five glared at Nedzu. But it's okay for you to know? Of course, it's my job after all, Nedzu said cheerfully. Now, you came here for a reason, did you not? Right, his test. Five offered the 2 packets forward to Nedzu. Here, I haven't finished the rest. Nedzu took the papers and skimmed through them, expression as inscrutable as always. These answers are very thoughtful. I look forward to going through them in more detail. May I check your progress on the other subjects as well? Five tried to school his expression again, but felt his face twitch regardless. Like I said, I haven't finished them yet. I'll never hold something like that against you, I promise. Nedzu said, in a cheerful tone that Five was certain was covering some more sinister intent. I just wanted to track how fast you work. You see, unless you have something to hide. Damn it! He was cornering Five again. Reluctantly, Five took out the rest of his test and handed it to Nedzu, watching him flip through the packets with the same quaint expression. Once he was finished, he looked up at Five. You haven't had any education with how you read or write Japanese, have you? Five's face burned, having been exposed to the one person he didn't want to know that fact. No, he grumbled. I haven't. That's not a problem, Nedzu said, straightening the stacks of packets. Frankly, it's impressive that you speak Japanese as well as you do, considering your unbalanced education. I'll look over these tonight and draw up your new curriculum as soon as possible. Unbalanced? Five repeated, furrowing his brows. Nedzu ignored him. In the meantime, would you accompany me to the gym? I'd like to take note of your physical abilities as well. I thought I wasn't allowed to participate in hero classes. You're not, Nedzu confirmed, but we cannot give you control over your quirk with theories alone. We need to observe and develop your quirk so that you can return to your proper timeline. A chill ran down Five's spine, subconsciously straightening his posture. Training, as much as Five missed it, the idea of doing it with Nedzu was deeply uncomfortable. The principal was already scarily good at reading Five, and outcasting him. He didn't want to give him more power than he already had. But Five knew how things like this played out. He'll get dragged down to the dark rooms and told to teleport out. Out of the closet and the cupboards and into vaults and out of restraints and into places barely large enough for him to fit in, and jumping faster and faster and faster, pushing his limits, while knowing it was never enough. He hated it. He knew he didn't have a choice. Of course, Five said, falling in line out of habit. Lead the way. Training with Nedzu was different than what Five had expected. Rather than actually challenging Five, he just had Five perform a series of algebral tests, letting Five use his quirk however he liked. Racing, jumping, lifting, throwing a ball. It felt so mundane, like an actual high school, which Five supposed it was. Do you feel comfortable making a time jump? Five asked at the end of it, where Five was only slightly out of breath. Just popping forward a second. Just enough to do it. Five raised an eyebrow at him. You're not worried I'll turn into an alicorn? Well, you've obviously done this successfully before, Nedzu pointed out, and it will be necessary for you to do it again in order for you to get back home. So it's best to start small and work out the kinks. We could wait to start exercises like this, but I believe it would only be delaying the inevitable. Five took a deep breath and reached forward with his quirk, anxiety pulling in his gut as his hands glowed. What if he messed us up? What if he ended up in another time entirely again? What if he lost all of the stability he had somehow, inevitably being afforded to him? No, he had to focus. Five pictured the world, one frame ahead of one he was already currently on. Everything was just a little off. Just enough that if you flip through the two, everything was in a slightly different place than before. The world had turned, an arm had moved, and a boy jumped from one page to another, passing through a space where the images overlapped, and he could leave someone cross-eyed. Five came out of the other side in one piece, once again not an acorn. Relief and hope filled Five's chest, and he bumped his fist. Once again, not an acorn. Relief and hope filled Five's chest, and he pumped his fists with a quiet yes before he heard scratching on a chalkboard and he remembered who he was with. That was a 5-second jump, Nedzu said cheerfully, looking up at Five. We'll have to work on your fitness regarding the aspect of your quirk, but I think we're off to a very good start. Feel free to get changed and head back to the teacher's lounge. Yoda and Hisashi should be finishing up by now. I'm sure you want to rest after such a long first day. Nedzu turned to leave, but Five stopped him with a, "Wait." "Yes?" Five stared him down. "What do you want from me? You obviously have some sort of bigger plan for me. So what is it? What do you get out of me being here?" "My dearest Hargreeves, that would be telling," Nedzu said, mysteriously, paws held behind his back. Though instead of leaving Five to stew in unanswered questions, Nedzu lingered in the doorway, eventually saying, "It may be hard for you to believe, but I'm doing what I am with you and your siblings, best intentions at heart." He glanced over his right shoulder at Five, the scar over his eye at full display. "You aren't the only ones to undergo experimentation due to your quirks." Five stared at him, slack jaw, as he walked away. Guess who's here? I'm here. Guess who's here with more theories? Me. Okay, so 1. Either Nedzu was experimented on by Regnals, like Poe, his monkey, right? And he ended up being another experimentation that he does, which interesting concept. Or Nedzu is a result of experimentation thanks to the understanding of Poe, which is a monkey that has human intelligence and can talk, right? So obviously scientists saw that it was possible, so they tried to recreate what Regnal did, creating Nedzu. And that's why Nedzu has, some sort of help for, and wants to help Five in some way, shape, or form. And the quote-unquote manipulative Nedzu might not be that Nedzu's actually manipulative, but because Five, views him as manipulative. Five has very big trusting issues. It's very evident. He thought Hisashi was manipulating him and had other motives, right? When it's not the case. It's Hisashi. Trust me. Mance does not have other motives, right? Don't think too much into it. Don't think, why did he buy me this PlayStation? What other motives does he have? There is no other motives. He just wants to play video games with his new son. Trust me. Don't try to read too much into it. Unless we're talking about a smart Hisashi fanfic. Even then, though, Hisashi's never like his intent behind things isn't necessarily malicious. Like, for example, his utter motive on letting Five buy all that stuff is not some, thing of oh, I'm trying to gain your trust so I could break your trust later. No, he just wants to give Five what he's never had before. He sees a broken child and he wants to mend said broken child, right? I don't know about Nedzu. I don't know where I stand with him. It's very iffy. I don't know if I should trust him or if the manipulative Nedzu is coming from Five's perspective. Because we also have to think about this. Story perspective changes how one views a character deeply. I was once writing a story. It was a zombie apocalypse story where there was 4 characters and 4 different points of views. And in 2 of those 4 points of views, one character was portrayed as awful, horrible, and just absolutely the worst. While in one, they were portrayed kind of bad, right? But in a sweeter tone. And then one, they were awfully portrayed as the hero, the good one, the whatever, right? And it was supposed to show the reflection of how different points of views changes how you see the perspective of a character, right? Clearly this character was supposed to be an awful, horrible character. In 2 points of views, it is views as such because those 2 characters understand that this person is a horrible person, while the other 2 points of views don't portray this character as such because one is their victim, who genuinely does not see how horrible this character is treating them, and the other is the character themselves, who's obviously not going to portray themselves as the villain. They're going to portray themselves as the victim, right? So, perspective is a very big thing, especially in literature. So am I wondering, Is manipulative Nedzu supposed to be in Five's perspective, or just overall Nedzu is manipulative? And if so, if Nedzu's manipulative, which I don't blame him, if I got experimented on, I would be a little cranky too. I would hate humans too. I don't blame you, Nedzu. I don't. I am a Nedzu apologist. He could murder people, and I would still be like, he's just a silly little goofy man, okay? He's a silly little goofy man, okay? Sometimes I stand by Nedzu. Although there's some times where he pushes it a little too hard. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, putting a stop to this. Come on. Nedzu, what are we doing? Nedzu, come on, Nedzu, come on. This isn't you. This isn't like you. Anyways, but it's why I want to know is here's my definitive theory. Nedzu was an experimentation. Whether it was, well, obviously that's very fucking obvious. Whether it was via Regnal directly or indirectly, right? Directly being Regnal himself, which is Five's dad, is the one who experimented on him, or indirectly in the sense of Regnal experimenting on Poe, the monkey who is, has human intelligence, inspired the people who then experimented on Nedzu, whatever which it is, right? I do believe that Nedzu is a result of Regnal, whether indirectly or directly. But that's just a theory. A fan theory. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Sorry. I'm still upset that, Mark. Who's Mark? Matt isn't with us. Mark is Markiplier. God damn it. That, Matt Pat isn't with us. We're gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him. I'm gonna miss the Matt Pat. We're gonna miss him. But hey, we got 4 new ones, and Matt Pat's still here. He's just in GTA. What? No, he's not in GTA. GT Live. God damn it. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.